Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast. Hello, and welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm Sherie.
And I'm David.
And we are continuing with this communication tips segment that we've been doing.
We always think we're going to fit things in like 2 episodes, and they end up being more
or
often.
One. This will be 1 episode. No,
Yeah.
It's like 3. But this comes from kind of the concepts of empathy skills that we did a very, very long time ago at the very beginning of our podcast. And we're building on some communication tips to keep in mind as you are working, either doing specifically those empathy skills formats that we've talked about, or whether you're just trying to seek to understand and empathize and have good communication skills. Mm-hmm. So we have done 11 different communication skills so far, right?
Not that you're counting.
Not that you're counting.
Because we don't label them or list them, so you're probably like 11. Okay.
Yes.
Whatever you say, that sounds fine.
And we've had 2 episodes on this, so this is the 3rd one as we're kind of going into this. So if you have missed some of those, you can go back and listen to those. If you missed the original empathy skills, how do I empathize with someone, and really look at a very specific format if you're not familiar with that and familiar with, okay, how do I do this? It really is a step-by-step process of how do I practice and do this thing called empathy and understanding. So just a reminder, if you haven't heard some of those, you can go back and take a look at those.
Yep.
So, but we're going to kind of continue from where we left off last episode, and some of these additional communication tips to keep in mind that are good for having good communication.
Yep. And I want to share something from Richard Rohr. He has a daily meditation. The Center for Action and Contemplation is what he started. And he has some great, great content. And I want to share something that I read a long time ago, and it perfectly fits empathy and communication skills. And I thought it would be helpful. So this comes from his meditation week 30, Courageous Listening.
Ooh, I like it already.
So here's what he says. Deep listening is an act of surrender. We risk being changed by what we hear. When I really want to hear another person's story, I try to leave my preconceptions at the door and draw close to their telling. I am always partially listening to the thoughts in my own head when others are speaking, so I consciously quiet my thoughts and begin to listen with my senses. The most critical part of listening is asking what is at stake for the other person. I try to understand what matters to them, not what I think matters. Sometimes I start to lose myself in their story. As soon as I notice feeling unmoored, I try to pull myself back into my body like returning home. As Hannah Arendt says, quote, one trains one's imagination to go visiting, end quote. When the story is done, we must return to our skin, our own worldview, and notice how we have been changed by our visit. When listening gets hard, I focus on taking the next breath. I pay attention to sensations in my body, heat, clenching, and constriction. I feel the ground beneath my feet. Am I safe? If so, I stay and slow my breath again, quiet my mind, and release the pressure that pushes me to defend my position. I try to wonder about this person's story and the possible wound in them. I think of an earnest question and try to stay curious long enough to be changed by what I hear. Maybe, just maybe, my opponent will begin to wonder about me in return, ask me questions, and listen to my story. Maybe their views will start to break apart and new horizons will open in the process. Then again, maybe not. It doesn't matter as long as the primary goal of listening is to deepen my own understanding. Listening does not grant the other side legitimacy. It grants them humanity and preserves our own. So I really like that, obviously. In fact, I put it in the handout that I have for all this empathy stuff because it just sort of nails what this is about.
Yes.
Hopefully helping us to see listening and communicating better and empathy as expanding our quality of life, our enjoyment, our values becoming our highest and best self, and not something we have to do, not something that this other person won't let this go unless I do. This is an opportunity for us to grow and progress, and we will be better off for it. I mean, just like you said, this is about humanity, ours and theirs both.
Yes. It's beautifully, beautifully stated. Just really goes to the heart of seeking to understand.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. Well, we could be done now. But we can talk about a few more
things.
Tips, few more things to think about. And one of those is that everyone, when you are seeking to understand, when you're trying to have an empathy skills discussion or however it is that you're communicating, recognize that everyone can take time and space.
Right.
Right? I think sometimes we start getting stuck in our conversations because we feel like we're not allowed to take a break and have that time. And all that does is just bunch all the emotions and get everything stuck.
Right.
And then we tend to escalate in our feelings and our emotions and our words and our tone. But if we can just understand, I always get to take a break if I need to. They always get to take a break if they need to.
I hear
right?
this so often so what happened? Why, if you were this escalated, were you still talking? Because, rule number one to me in effective communication is know when not to.
Yes.
And I hear so often, well, they wouldn't let me. They got in my way. They started saying things like, of course you're going to walk away. Of course you're running away. You always run away. And it's like they pull you back in. I always think of Marty from Back to the Future where if they call him chicken, like he has to do what they tell him.
Has to do
no,
it.
he doesn't. And he eventually figures that out, right?
Right.
But it's kind of like that where, well, did your spouse make you continue to talk when you knew that this wasn't working? So this idea is everyone can take time and space, even if you want to really hammer it out, because some of us are built that way. If your partner says, hey, give me a minute, let me process, let me go for a walk, let me do something else, try to let them do it.
Yes.
It's important that they do.
Yes. And if you have a situation where one person tends to leave but never return, right? That's where we want to come back. That's the important piece. This isn't I'm leaving to just
for good.
I'm done.
I make it sound like
out.
I need a break, but I have no plan to ever talk about this.
Yes. So if we want to respond with love, we still need to show up, but it's okay to take a break when showing up becomes too much and then we're not going to be able to respond with love.
Right.
So, and that's what we want to keep coming back to, because that's, I think, the part that most couples have that tricky spot that'll say in my sessions, it's like, yeah, but then we're never going to talk about it. It'll just never happen, which
is valid because that's often what's happened.
Yes, exactly. And so that's where we come back to and we say, hey, take a 5-minute break, take a 10-minute break, be very clear about the break that you're taking. If it's really intense and you guys only have 10 minutes to talk about it now and you're not going to have time until later, like set that time.
Yeah.
Like, after dinner, can we finish this conversation where I've had a chance to kind of breathe and think through things so that I can show up as my best self?
Yes.
And I think if we're using some of that language, that helps. I want to be able to show up as my best self. I want to be able to respond in love, and I can tell that I'm not going to be able to do that right now. So can we talk about it at this time when I've had a chance to kind of collect myself and think through things and breathe a little bit and show up that way?
And all you guys, bless your hearts, who have used this before to just not talk about something uncomfortable and hard to talk about, you're going to lose all credibility if you say, I just need to calm down and gather my thoughts. Give me 5 minutes. And then you don't follow up. So remember, the point is there's a real issue here. We're just being less effective at how we're dealing with it. So everybody calm down, and then we're back at it. But back at it. Not back at the fight, right? Just
coming back together.
Understanding and trying, and you'll get better at this. But don't take a break with the intention of never coming back. Mm-hmm. Create some credibility in your partner that, you will. I'll let you go. I mean, it's not their choice if you do or not, but I'll feel better about letting you go if I know you will make another attempt. And we're going to figure this out. So
just have that break, talk about it. Even setting a timer is helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you thought 5 minutes was going to work and it really didn't, and you still just can't, bring it, then you reconnect and you say, hey, I thought I could kind of get to a better place in 5 minutes. I'm just recognizing I am still not, and I need to take a little bit longer.
But if you're you're using your tools and breathing and doing affirmations, you can get a lot done in 5 minutes and maybe 10 minutes if you need. Yeah. Like, you can do a lot to calm down and come back and get present and keep going. So
yes,
that's a good one.
Yes. So take some time to breathe, take a walk. You might want to do a short meditation. You can even write, journal about what's going on and what part of this is mine, or how can I regain my grounding, and all of those different types of things are really, really good. And we've done our anxiety top down and bottom up stuff, and I think a lot of those things can work. You can have some top down stuff where you're writing and processing and whatever. A lot of times just be aware that you will probably need some bottom up stuff if you are escalated inside. Like, if you can feel that in your body, then you're probably going to need some of that bottom up stuff.
Yes.
And then come back ready to re-engage, seek for understanding and all of that.
Love it. And this next one's, we've heard this our whole lives, but I want you to really think about it. So when you're coming into a conversation, try to listen first and speak second. Like, really listen. We don't often enter conversations with the idea that I'm going to try to listen. We usually enter with, I'm going to try to get them to think the way I want them to, or to agree with me, or see it the way I see it. But actually come into the conversation ahead of time thinking, okay, I really want to understand. I really want to hear them.
Yes.
And you'll feel differently about it. So listen first, speak second. Kind of obvious, but we're not very aware. We come into these conversations, no plan whatsoever, except I'm feeling strongly, so here goes.
Yes, and you need to understand me, right?
Yeah, yep, definitely.
Okay, and that's a good thing to come in, because if you are coming in thinking that way or feeling like that, there's a good chance they are too, right? Like, I just feel very like that you don't understand, and if we can think about that, like, oh, they're coming in with that feeling that I don't understand them, then it can help us get to the place where we say, okay, no, I really want to make sure that I understand them.
Yep.
All right. Next tip is to focus on feelings and not details, and clearly state your needs. So there's kind of the typical I feel blank when blank.
Yep.
Right?
And we've talked about this before.
Yes.
But that's the idea. Make it more about feelings than anything else. Not so much the details, but the feelings. Because remember, if they're feeling strongly, even if you're right about something, they'll bounce to the next thing that they feel the same way about to maintain the feeling that they're in. And you'll never get ahead of it.
Right.
So what they need is to feel understood, or they'll just,
yes.
You can't handle it. You can't manage it.
Yeah. And if we're focusing on feelings, then we're taking the pressure off of I'm right, you're right. You know, we're getting down to underneath, which is a big focus when we talk about empathy and empathy skills, is making sure we're underneath there for the feelings instead of the who's right and what are the facts that are support my side versus yours.
Yep. The next one, I love this one. I use this all the time. Remember your spouse, substitute child,
substitute coworker or whatever. Yeah. Yes.
Doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I love this phrase. My children all the time, particular ones, are like, hey, how come they don't respect me? They're not listening to me. It's like, do they feel cared about? Now, maybe that's a different answer than you think I'd give you, but if you don't feel like people are taking you seriously or listening, ask yourself, do they feel cared about? Because if I don't feel like you care about me, I don't care very much about what you have to say or what you know. You may even be an expert on something, but if I don't feel cared for, not interested.
Yes.
So keep that in mind.
So it's that relationship is more important than a problem to be solved.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. The next one is to think about clearly identifying your needs and wants first. And then once you understand that, then you want to commit to meeting your partner's needs as well. So being really clear and understanding where you're coming from, which is sometimes why you need that break. You know, sometimes you get into a conversation and you're kind of getting heated and they're getting heated and you're not even sure why you're heated or what exactly is going on, right? Because oftentimes it's not about the certain facts that are happening. It's about something. A lot of times it's about something else, right?
Yep.
It's about not feeling loved or feeling neglected or unheard or unseen or something like that. And so sometimes those breaks, when we talk about taking those breaks, and that writing that you can do is going to be really helpful for you to really get down to, okay, what are my wants and needs in this situation? And then if they're doing that as well, sometimes you need to help them. You can help them identify those, but then really commit to being willing to meet your partner's needs. Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously there's limits to that. Like as long as it's not going against, your personal value base and all of those things. As long as it's not illegal
or immoral, do your best.
But really committing to, like, I want to show up for them and I want to be there for them and help meet their needs.
Yeah.
And the great thing is if you're both doing that, then you're going to have a really good relationship.
Yeah, you will. Yep. Thinking errors, Kay. This is important. Be aware of your thinking errors, what they are, how they show up, and work on these. So thinking errors, we've talked about this before in other episodes, but if you know that you tend to go to an all or nothing kind of thinking or catastrophizing, everything's terrible, or emotionally reasoning, you're going to trust your feelings so much that they're right no matter what, when they could be wrong. Whatever your thinking errors are, be aware of them and manage them well. It's not your partner's fault that you're in a thinking error or that you're not managing your thinking error.
Yes.
And these are hard. And you'll see your partner's thinking errors. It's not your job to tell them. Although I know there's healthy relationships where you can say, hey, it kind of sounds like this is where you're at. But if you're in a heated conversation,
that's
you
not
manage
the time
yours.
To bring it up.
Yeah.
Yes. Bring it up in a calm, collected
You're doing
space.
that thing again. You always do that thing.
Yes.
It's like, am I going to listen to you now? I don't know.
Yes. Yep. So love that. Love that. Be aware of where your thinking errors are and how they may be influencing what's going on for you, and work on those and manage those. So the next one is that it is not your spouse's job to meet all of your emotional needs, and it's not their job to make you happy.
What?
I know, right?
Are you sure?
Isn't this why we get in relationships, so someone else will take care of all of our needs for us?
Your job is to make me happy. You're failing
Yes.
to make me happy.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
And they can't meet all your emotional needs. What a concept. You will need friends. You will need
Yes.
girls' night out and guys' night out. You're going to
Yes.
need support in other ways besides just your partner.
Yes. And that's important.
Yep.
It's really important because they can't be there for you 100% of the time, all of the time. This is not a 24/7 job. My job is to now meet all of your needs all of the time.
Impossible.
Yeah. Even if someone wanted to, they wouldn't be able to.
Right.
Right. And so it's really important to be aware that, hey, you know what we can do? I can meet my needs. I can work on meeting my needs in some of these ways. I can offer and I can connect with them and say, hey, could you be a sounding board for me right now? Or, hey, I just really need to vent. Can I vent to you about something? And if they can't, if it's like, I am so sorry, I am on a time crunch, I have, 20 minutes to get this project in to my boss, like, they can't be there for you in that moment. So you don't just stuff it and, oh, now my needs aren't getting met and have a meltdown, right? You
Right.
reach out to someone else.
Right.
You connect with other people. You don't have to now your life is over because
Right.
someone else isn't meeting all of your needs.
Yep. So if you have that expectation,
Check
throw it away.
Yes.
Burn it, bury it.
Yes.
yeah.
Find other places. And in the same token, I think there are some spaces where in relationships, people expect that they are now the end all be all for their partner.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of this other way. So you are not allowed to go spend time with friends or go, on this backpacking trip because that really fills your soul, because I am the one that is now supposed to meet every single need for you. So be aware of that end of it too.
Yep. So all relationships take work to maintain and improve. Is this the first time you're hearing this? I hope not. Now listen to this next part. I love it. It's not the absence of problems, but effective problem solving that counts. You know how many people, this is that book that I'm going to write someday. I just always have book titles, but I never actually write anything. Your greatest problem is your fear of pain. That's a book title.
Yes, there that is. Very
Effective
much.
problem solving is what counts, not trying to avoid all the problems in your life.
Yeah, or not having any.
Right.
I think everybody knows that couple that never argues, never fights or whatever, but they have all kinds of, things going on and they're just avoiding it, right?
Right.
And that doesn't make for a good relationship.
Nope.
Always takes work. Work, right? All the good stuff. Okay, next one. You have a choice. You always have options.
I use this one a lot.
Important. Yes.
All the time I hear a spouse say, well, what am I supposed to do if this? And it's like, you have options. They make a choice. You make a choice. They make a choice. You make a choice. You always have options. You have more power than you think. Of course, connected back to all this stuff we've talked about, but
Yes, you've got all of these choices. Just like
you're
we were
never
talking about
powerless.
earlier.
Don't be afraid of some elbow grease. Some things are just going to take a lot of work, and nothing of value is free or easy. Very few things. I shouldn't say nothing.
Yes.
I can think of a few things.
Yes.
But most things
Most
that have
things.
value require a lot of work and effort. And treat your marriage the same way, or your relationship.
Okay, and last one. Be positive by understanding your own worth and your own safe place in the world.
Safe. Yeah. I like it. We're safer than we think. That's another book title.
There you go.
You're
Yeah.
safer than you think.
Yes, and you can create your own safety.
Yep.
And if you understand your own worth and you understand that you can create your own safety, then you've got so much more going for you.
Yeah.
Right? It makes it a lot easier to engage in elbow grease and take all
Yeah.
this time and work and whatever, because you don't have to worry so much about how does this affect my worth? How is this going to affect my perceived worth or my safety?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. You made it. You made it through all of the communication stuff. Now you're an expert.
You're an expert.
Right? As all of us are like, oh, guess how I blew it this week. We were just talking before before we started recording about ways we've blown it just this week in our communication. But they're all good things to keep in mind.
You're okay.
To keep
Remember,
practicing.
the only failure is quitting and giving up. You
Yes.
just don't quit. You just don't give up. You keep going. And you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, just a reminder, send questions or comments our
Yes.
way. We're happy to address that. We want to do more of that. I keep thinking about that, and we'll start that. And so if you have a question for us or even would like us to address something in future episodes or
Yep.
make an episode about a concern that you have,
Yes. We've gotten
let's
some
do
of
it.
those.
So just reach out to us. Let us know. The website, twotherapisttalking.com. That's where you would reach out.
Okay. I'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.